After months of preparing for a fight over President Trump's taxes, the Democrats have made their move. The House Ways and Means Committee has formally requested 6 years of the president's returns from the IRS. And now, and back during the campaign, Trump has argued that he could not release his returns because he was under audit. Trump's former personal attorney and fixer, Michael Cohen, was asked about that during his congressional testimony.
Mr. Cohen, do you know whether President Trump's tax returns were really under audit by the IRS in 2016?
I don't know the answer. I asked for a copy of the audit so that I could use it in terms of my statements to the press, and I was never able to obtain one.
The White House says they are prepared to fight all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. With me now is Shan Wu, a former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Fred.
All right, so would an audit of some or all of the president's taxes actually protect against any such release?
It doesn't appear to. No one's been able to come up with the rule that says if you're under audit, you can't release the returns. I mean, there's some sort of a common sense notion that if they're auditing me, I wouldn't want other people seeing the material, but no one's really come up with a rule that says that. And of course, it seems to be one of the great unanswered questions of our time, if he really is under an audit or not, so we don't even know that.
So the committee's request, is based on this 1924 tax law that allows Congress really to be furnished the records, and it doesn't leave the IRS much room to really maneuver. So here's what Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal said about the timing of this demand.
We followed IRS guidelines, which suggest to taxpayers that 6 years is generally the measurement that they use for advising taxpayers on how long to keep their forms. So we didn't want to have the case perhaps dismissed on a technical glitch. So again, I think, as I've said to you now for a long period of time, we've taken a very methodical approach to what will likely be an established court case.
And what do you see in the road ahead on this matter?
I think he's right. It's certainly going to be an established court case. I mean, the Trump lawyers are going to fight very hard. They're going to have to make new law because on the face of it, that provision seems like a no-brainer. It's open shut case. There's no threshold that needs to be established. They can simply request it. Mm-hmm. And so the letter that his lawyer wrote is kind of a grab bag of sort of weak legal arguments to me. I mean, he starts off saying you need a legitimate legislative purpose. Then he says, even if you have one, I think it's pretextual. Moves to sort of a First Amendment argument that they're punishing the president's speech. And then lastly, throws in as a kicker, in any event, this would be all unconstitutional because it's a separation of powers violation. So it's kind of like, pick your shot there. And I think it's weak. I don't think they really have much of a leg to stand on. However, it's wise to put out those arguments because, as always, the team may be playing to the court of public opinion.
And you argue that the letter that came from the president's lawyer really is kind of a grab bag. It doesn't make a really good sound argument as to why the president should not acquiesce.
Exactly. I don't think there is a sound argument to make. If I were representing the president, I might try to make some kind of an argument along the lines of the president's returns are different than other people's returns. It could be very disruptive to the presidency, kind of like the argument they make that presidents shouldn't be sued civilly. I think you could make such an argument, but the assortment of issues that he puts forth in the letter it appears to be a shotgun approach.
So who is to, entertain, this request by the White House? Is it strictly up to the IRS to say we're not going to hand the material over?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Fred. If I were Trump's people, I would want the IRS to say that rather than the White House counsel's office saying it. And perhaps that is why he was so prioritizing the confirmation of the IRS general counsel. It seemed more important to him than even appointing a new attorney general. And you would want, from a defensive point of view, to have the agency back you up that way. But I think they're going to be hard-pressed to do that. And if the agency internally tells them we can't turn it down, then they may have to weigh in a more heavier fashion from the White House counsel's office.
And then quickly, what would be answered from these tax returns that the public needs to know?
among the answers would be whether or not, from a criminal standpoint, whether there's fraud in terms of these inflated values we've heard from the Michael Cohen testimony. It would also answer a lot of questions as to just where his business interests are. Foreign entities, foreign investments. Those would all be very helpful to know, because that's really been very well hidden by his
and how
structures.
any of that would potentially influence policy that the president would be driving.
Absolutely.
All right, Shan Wu, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.